Hello. Welcome to another Titterpig lecture where I'm teaching you about a tabletop role-playing game or tabletop role-playing game concepts. This time we're covering Liminal Horror by Goblin Archives, which is a cool, very rules-light and open supernatural horror with a modern setting RPG. Now, it can do kind of any kind of horror subgenre, but it does lean into like the supernatural and cosmic horror type stuff quite a bit. But this game I played recently for the first time, and I really, really enjoy it. So let's take a look at how this works. First up, we've got some acknowledgments. So this is a hack of Cairn, which is, of course, based on Into the Odd and Electric Bastion Land. So if you know any of those games, like Maze Rats, Into the Odd, Electric Bastion Land, Isle of Ix, stuff like that, you're going to have an advantage learning this game. And if you learn this game, you're going to have an easy time learning those because they all use kind of the same base rules. All right, and up first, we're just looking at some stuff here. Modern cosmic horror, and it kind of gives you some terms, some ideas of what to expect here. The world is dangerous, and death is always a possible consequence, so it's a very dangerous game. Play deals with themes of cosmic horror. This is represented by stress and fallout. So that's how you deal with like these incredibly strange things that are happening. This design avoids using mental illness and trauma as gameplay mechanics, which I think is very important. Not that you can't have those things in your games, but you need to be very careful about how you represent things like that. So there are no classes in this game. There's no leveling or mechanical experience. So there's not a whole lot of character growth. There is the stress and fallout can lead to your character changing. So there's some stuff there. And one of the really nice things about this game is it is available fully for free. You can go to this website here, goblinarchives.github.io, and you can get the full text for free. But now that we kind of know a little bit about the game, if you want to know more, read the principles for facilitators. That's the person running the game, called a game master in a lot of games, and principles for players as well, as to like what your player goals are probably going to be, things like that. Let's take a look at characters. So this is character creation. It doesn't tell us exactly how things work yet, but it does tell us how to create a character. You can see you have 3 ability scores here: strength, dexterity, and control. And for each of these, you're going to roll 3d6 and assign it to one of these scores. At the end, you can swap 2 of them if you want. And then for your hit protection, not your hit points, this is not your health, but hit protection, you got 1d6. So you're working with a 1 to 6 HP. Now that sounds really scary, but because of the mechanics of this game, you actually can take damage to your ability scores in addition to your hit protection, which gives you a little bit more durability, but not a lot. It's still a very deadly game. And then you can choose a name and you roll for a background, and there's some questions you can answer if you want to. As well as you get some starting gear. Everybody gets a phone, some cash, and a notebook and pen. And here it tells you about the inventory system: 10 inventory slots, hand and upper body. And over here is an equipment list, which this is all linked, which is great. And then certain items are bulky and they take 2 slots or require 2 hands. So here's the background list. So in this game, as you can see here, these are just mostly pretty much just ordinary jobs, with the exception of things like very online and stuff, which is kind of just a just a thing that anyone can be. But it sort of conveys you're just a normal person in Liminal Horror. You're investigating rumors and things like that of supernatural phenomena happening. Uh, but yeah, you're not a professional in any way. You don't have a big agency backing you. You're just a guy who's gonna walk into a place where strange things are happening and probably get in over your head. And here's the getting to know your character section. So here you can see some of the background stuff, your ideologies, things like that. This is good for role playing. It doesn't really have any mechanical significance, because the mechanical significance in this game, generally the mechanics kill you or do something awful to your character. So yeah, if you can be clever about the way that you play, you can avoid making rolls, and you can avoid taking damage and dying and all of that, to an extent. Sometimes you can't, but many times you can avoid at least some of it. And we have connections as well. So this ties your character into the game world, which I think is really nice. And we have more things about your character, which you can use for role playing and things like that. And here we have some actual mechanical impact stuff. So here's your starting gear. Once again, your investigator bundle. You can have a smartphone or a flip phone. And yeah, you get, this is a weird amount of starting cash that is hugely variable in a strange way, but there it is. You get your notebook and your pen, and you get to roll on each of these tables. So yeah, you get a weapon, investigative gear, a memento, and a bonus item of some sort. One of which can be magic, which magic is pretty cool in this game. We'll get to that in a minute. And here are some questions to establish character bonds, like at the beginning of a campaign. If you're running a one-shot, then maybe not as important as to how you know each other. And vehicles. Yeah, vehicles do have HP. And your party should determine what type of vehicles they have access to, how many, things like that. And with the money that you rolled at the beginning, here is a bunch of equipment that you can use. I like that this is called modern day potions, and it's, like medical stuff. And even more gear. You've got things like traps, binoculars, just a bunch of cool things that you can use here that might come in handy. All right, and now we get into the gameplay of the game. So as you're playing your investigator, as you're going around questioning people, looking for supernatural phenomena, you might run into a situation that is dangerous, that is where the outcome you're unsure of. There's some risk involved. And when that happens, you make a save. Now, a save goes to one of your three abilities: your strength, your dexterity, your control. And you can see here what they're used for. Strength is physical power. Dexterity is speed, subtlety, or precision. And control is for the weird, like supernatural stuff, for luck, for social interaction, and emotional strain, as well as for stress and fallout. Strength also, when you take physical damage, it goes to your strength first. And the way that you make a save is you roll a d20, and you want to get below whatever your ability score is. So the higher your ability score, the better you are at that thing. And of course, you want to know what you're good at so that you can take your risks in a smart manner, since this game is so deadly. Now, there are ways to restore HP. Here you can see we have healing. Taking a quick rest restores HP but can leave the investigators exposed. Ability loss takes longer to recover from, and it can take as much as a week's rest with medical intervention or magical means. So when you take ability damage, it takes a lot longer to recover. And the PCs encounter an NPC. So this is more for the facilitator side of things than the player side, but it's nice to be able to have this. You encounter an NPC that maybe doesn't have a personality decided yet or anything like that. You're not sure how they're going to react. Well, here it is. And then we have armor and stability. Armor reduces incoming physical damage before it's applied to HP or your strength score. And stability reduces incoming stress, which is like more mental damage. Stress comes when you're being exposed to the supernatural or attacked in like a magical way, and that targets your control. Stability reduces that. Both stress and damage will hit your HP if you have any. And some additional rules here about fatigue and deprived if you're in a like survival type situation. So you might be lacking food, you might be lacking rest, and if you're deprived for more than a day, you add fatigue. This takes up an inventory slot. If you're deprived, you're unable to recover HP or ability scores. And once again, we have vehicles here. So we already covered inventory a little bit, as well as, so here we have associates. Your characters have money, and you can hire people to help you out. Maybe just to be, like human shields, depending on how dangerous it is. But here's the cost for something. Kind of GM's discretion on how much it's going to cost. And here's how you create an associate, which is basically the same as a character. 3d6 for abilities, 1d6 HP, and then give them a weapon. Expert associates, they're employed for a very specific task, so they are probably good at one specific thing, and they might have some sort of skills and stuff like that. All right, and last we've got, this just tells you about how money works, which is about how you would expect, but there are some rules there if you want that. Combat in this game, as I stressed, it is a very deadly game. At the start of combat, and thank you, Jay, for supporting me. I appreciate that. But at the start of combat, you must make a dex save to act before your adversaries. Unless you're surprised, then you go after. If you succeed at your dex save, you go before. If you fail, you go after. Everybody gets a turn in a round, and you can move and take an action. Pretty basic, straightforward stuff. And you are able to just try and run away from the combat. Retreat is an option. Importantly, when you attack, there's no attack roll. You can't fail an attack. You just roll your damage. So if you are attacking, you are going to deal some amount of damage. And if you and your allies want to target the same foe, everyone rolls, and you keep the single highest one, and this works the opposite way as well if multiple enemies are attacking the same person. And you also get multiple damage dice if you have 2 weapons that you can use. You can modify the attack die, like every weapon has a damage die associated with it. But if you find a way to position yourself advantageously, your attack is enhanced and you have a d12. If you're like on the floor or otherwise impaired, you can only deal d4 damage no matter what your weapon is, and if you're unarmed, you also do d4 damage. Hi, Wes. You've played this game. You know how this works. And here's some blast critical damage, which is important. So blast is basically explosions or things like that, anything that can hit multiple enemies. Critical damage is if your HP is brought below 0 and your strength is decreased, then you have to take a strength save. Otherwise, you get critical damage. If you get critical damage, you're disabled, and all you can do is crawl around, and somebody has to help you. The stress equivalent is called fallout. So if you fail to make a control save when your stress gets reduced, then you get critical stress and gain fallout from the stress fallout table, which actually I think we'll continue to go through rules first. And here, if your strength score is reduced to 0, you die. If your dex is reduced to 0, you can't move. And if your control is reduced to 0, you're lost, is what it says. It doesn't really describe what that is, but clearly it means that your brain is probably not very functional. When your character dies, just roll up a new one. We went through character creation. It doesn't take long. Expect to go through a few characters unless you're super, super careful in this game. Large groups or of similar combatants treated as a single detachment. So there's rules for mobs, so you don't have to keep track of 12 enemies, which I think is good. And morale can be triggered so that enemies retreat, which adds some level of realism. People want to stay alive, generally speaking. And here we get into magic. I mentioned it before in character creation. If you roll a d20 on your bonus item, you can get magic. See, random spells are generated using the table and process below. So you're rolling these guys here. Spells use a single action, and so you have your effect and your form. And there's are multiple things. And on a success, the spell stays prepared. You mark fatigue in an inventory slot. And if you fail your control save, you don't retain the spell, you mark deprived and add fatigue to your inventory. So it fatigues you either way. Magic is costly and dangerous. But usually it causes a d8 damage, which, not bad. So here's some of the effects and forms you can get. Ethereal effects like paralyzing, revolting, scrying, physical elements like sap, oil, poison, forms like bubble, coil, pyramid, tentacle, throne. What these mean, you're just going to have to interpret. After you randomly roll to create the spell, you and your facilitator are just gonna figure out what that means to you guys and how that looks. Yeah, scrolls are like magic, but don't affect you nearly as much. Let's see, they don't cause fatigue, and they always disappear after one use, which, pros and cons there. but you must make a control save or receive 1d4 stress. And relics are other magical items that, probably last longer than scrolls do. Scrolls are one-offs. Relics last longer and can have additional effects. So, since we're talking about stress, here's stress. So this is more for the GM side of things, but yeah, if you see something weird, you can take 1 stress. If you come in contact with something weird and unexplainable, you can take d4 stress. And yeah, if you come in contact with the old powers, we're talking, cosmic horror, old gods type thing, that's a d10 stress. So yeah, stress table, just rough guidelines, but I think that it's still very useful. There's a lot of good facilitator tools in here overall. And Fallout table. So when you take Fallout, you can roll on here. Take one of these. It can make you paranoid. It can just make you feel like reality is not as it seems. In many, many ways. It can unlock magic, just taking stress, observing the supernatural. You've been branded for sacrifice, anointed for doom. That's a fun one. And then we get to the Paranormal Bestiary, so this is kind of where enemy tables are, but when it comes to the facilitator side of things, we have spark tables, which these just here to inspire stuff. You can just say rotting heart, and depending on the situation, you might think of something where a rotting heart might be relevant. Rotting in heart might be metaphors for something in your situation. So, and we can see some other stuff. Entombed Hunter, Flesh Sigil. So a lot of cool stuff in there. And one of the most important things, the mystery framework. So this kind of helps you create your own mysteries within this game. I think that it's a good guide to create adventures for a lot of like OSR and NSR games, and possibly just in general, though your approach might be a little bit different if your characters are more heroic and you want to play more like this is a TV show about them rather than these are ordinary people who are probably going to die. So yeah, you've got, what are you inspired by? What's the concept? Who's around? What do they want? And it also comes with an example mystery called The Plague of Frogs, where you can see here the factions, you can see the doom clock. Here are the different steps as to what will happen if the players don't do anything. It'll go all the way through this doom clock, but as the players progress, they might slow down or stop the doom clock entirely at certain points. Kind of just depends on what happens in the story. And here's some ideas of like clues to help the players figure out what's happening, different things they could investigate. And the frogs themselves. Here's how they work, what they can do. They can infect people, and become a frog themselves. And here's like some of the enemies. Now, you might not have to fight all of these people, but, if you do, here's the stat blocks and stuff for them. Here's the abilities that they have. And there's an actual, map for some of the places, for some of the locations. I usually don't draw maps. I kind of go on vibes and theater of the mind type stuff with descriptions, and so it's more of a point crawl than an actual, laid out map. But I'm more of a story gamer than an NSR, OSR girly, so that's probably a major reason why. And yeah, at the back of the book, we've got the rules summary. So this is a quick reference as to how everything works. Super handy when you're running the game and when you're playing the game. If you forget anything, most of the rules are right here. And we've also got a very basic character sheet. Characters are just super, super simple. But yeah, that is Liminal Horror by Goblin Archives. Fantastic game. Highly recommend it. Works well for just about any type of modern or modern-ish horror. It does say smartphones in there, but like obviously you can take out the cell phones and run it in a pre-cell phone type of setting. So yeah, if there are any questions, I will be right here. Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and probably chill and switch over to some video games and do some other type of horror in a little bit. Spooky poop, and that's right. We will spooky poop. All right. Well, I'm gonna end the TTRPG portion of this, but yeah, if you like this stuff, if you want to learn more about TTRPGs and all that, oh, my commands aren't working because I don't have my streamer bot up. Streamer.bot.exe. There we go. You can join us in the Discord that I run. It's called Titterpig Academy. We teach people TTRPGs. Nuclear Wessels is in there as one of our teachers who's super active, and they're pretty cool. They teach a lot of games. I teach games once in a while, and there's a lot of people also in there just to answer questions that may or may not be running games, but there's a lot of cool people in there. It's super queer. We talk about nerd stuff. Come join us. Have a good time. Play some TTRPGs.